So this dangerous murder for hire plot exposed in today's complaint allegedly was orchestrated by a Pakistani national with close ties to Iran and is straight out of the Iranian playbook. Oh no! After Merchant paid $5,000, one of the undercover cops said to him, "Now we're bonded." To which Merchant responded, "Yes. Money has changed hands."
Kira, the arrest July 12th, you'll note, is one day before former President Trump's rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, when there was an attempt on the former president's life.
A Pakistani national now indicted by the feds for allegedly trying to eliminate Donald Trump. Very interesting story. And this is a separate incident, apparently, from what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania on July 13th. Or is it? There's a new report from our friends at the Oversight Project. They say new details about this so-called Iranian plot to assassinate Trump are raising serious questions about the security posture at the Butler rally. Our continued review of the mobile data shows that there's a connection, right? So you see here, we're going to come back to this, but this guy is the individual who just got indicted. His name is Asif Merchant, aka Raza Merchant. And remember, we've already talked about what the Oversight Project has done previously. They're sponsored over by the Heritage Foundation. And what they did is they gobbled up a bunch of cell phone data. So you can buy this data, location data, ad data. A lot of advertisers want to, see what your location was and what's pinging off certain stuff. And you can just gobble this data up. It's everywhere. You just have to know how to get it. So they got it. And what they were showing is that Thomas Crooks and people who were visiting his location were also, his residence and his place of work, were also going to DC. Weird. Crooks people were in Crooks's home and going to DC. Weird. And they may have been going over to the FBI, right? All these weird connections are happening. And now they're connecting the two. So this guy, Asif Merchant, has now been indicted. Here is what the DOJ said about this. They said, all right, guess what? Pakistani national with ties to Iran was charged in connection with the foiled plot to assassinate a politician. Who could that be? Or a U.S. government official. Okay, that's definitely Trump. They say, all right, look, earlier today, complaint was unsealed in Brooklyn charging Asif Merchant, aka Raza Merchant, with a plot for murder for hire as part of an alleged scheme to assassinate a politician, aka Trump. And so this was actually brought, to be technical about this, by, it looks like a criminal complaint, not an indictment. So this would have been, an affidavit written by a Fed, FBI, somebody filing this. They charge him. They don't actually have to convene a full grand jury, which would then return an indictment. They move much more quickly. So they say, just to be clear on that, but regardless, criminal charges have come nonetheless. Doesn't change the ultimate criminal charge. It just changes how it gets here. So he's been charged. Law enforcement foiled the charged plot before any attack could be carried out. Maybe. If this guy's connected to Crooks or somebody tried to shoot Trump, he was definitely attacked. So for years, says Merrick Garland, oh gosh, what did he write? So let's see what this goober says. For years, the Justice Department has been working aggressively to counter Iran's brazen and unrelenting efforts to retaliate against American public officials for the killing of Iranian General Soleimani. So Trump nuked that dude, and then they're going to come back and hit him. Okay. So the Justice Department will spare no resource to disrupt and hold accountable those who would seek to carry out Iran's lethal plotting against American citizens. We're going to read this. We'll see if it's legit or not. Certainly I don't want anybody from Iran trying to take Trump out. As far as I know, it might be the Secret Service though. So this dangerous murder for hire plot exposed in today's complaint allegedly was orchestrated by a Pakistani national with close ties to Iran and is straight out of the Iranian playbook. Oh no. I just had flashbacks to Russian playbooks. Didn't you? I almost threw my back out. Oh my gosh. A foreign-directed plot to kill a public official or any U.S. citizen is a threat to our national security. Now, here's where I'm going to question this. Is this a foreign-directed plot, or is this just some crazy Pakistani national, who might have a mental problem or something, working on behalf of others overseas? This is very convenient that it's Iran. It's like the whole world is gearing up for war with Iran. They're like, oh yeah, they're trying to kill your people. According to allegations contained in the complaint and related publicly filed court documents, Merchant orchestrated a plot to assassinate Trump in approximately April 2024, so before what happened in Butler in July. After spending time in Iran, Merchant arrived in the United States from Pakistan, contacted a person he believed could assist him with the scheme. The person reported Merchant's conduct to law enforcement and then became a confidential source. In early June, Merchant met with the confidential source in New York and explained his plot. But here is the criminal complaint. So, filed against Asif Merchant, Pakistani national, allegedly responsible for trying to hire someone to murder President Trump. filed under seal, now unsealed. This is the complaint and the affidavit to execute an arrest warrant. And apparently they picked this guy up on his way out of the country, meaning he may have thought this was going to move forward. Let's see how serious this is. He says, okay, Anthony Cipriano for the government swears in as a special agent of the FBI. He says, all right, murder for hire, count one, from at least in or about April 2024 through July 2024. July what? Both dates being approximate and inclusive. Within the Eastern District of New York and elsewhere, Asif Raza, together with others, did knowingly and intentionally travel in interstate and foreign commerce. He went from Texas to New York. He used a cell phone, and he did all of that with the intention that murder be committed in exchange for money. Now, where does this information come from? FBI agent says, I'm a special agent with the FBI. Been here since 2012. I'm currently assigned to the FBI New York field office. I investigate crimes involving terrorism and espionage, including threats from Iran, Hezbollah, and the Quds Force. Saying the facts in this affidavit come from my personal observations as an FBI special agent, my training and experience and other information. When I rely on statements by others, I only talk about stuff that I can explain. In addition, many of the statements are based on draft English translations of communications that were not originally made in English. They twist words in English all the time. So now they're going to introduce a translation here. So this dude's like saying stuff in Pakistan. Now, in my training and experience, I have become aware that the government of Iran has publicly stated its desire and intention to conduct operations targeting those perceived to be enemies of the Iranian regime, including Americans. In particular, representatives of the government of Iran have publicly stated the desire to avenge the death of Soleimani, who was killed on Jan 3rd by a drone strike in Baghdad, Iraq. Trump took him out. Now, in August, a member of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard was charged with plotting to assassinate former NSA advisor around DC in retaliation for that. Now, based on my training and experience as well, I have learned that in the course of this investigation, I believe that the tradecraft and operational security measures that were used by Asif, as described below, he used coded language, he used multiple cell phones, the removal of cellular telephones to attempt to avoid surveillance, right? So this guy was kind of hiding stuff, are consistent with the person engaged with this type of plotting on behalf of a foreign adversary. Now, the defendant, Asif, also known as Raza, is a citizen of Pakistan. He was born 1978 in Karachi, Pakistan. He has stated that he currently resides in Pakistan. He also stated that he has a wife and children in Pakistan, that he also has a wife and children in Iran. His travel records to enter the U.S., he indicated frequent travel. Here's a photo of Merchant here below. Here's the overview. So he had a plot to assassinate Trump. They're just going to say officials, but we know. Since at least April 2024, Merchant orchestrated a plot to assassinate government officials on U.S. soil. After spending some time in Iran, he flew from Pakistan to the U.S. to recruit individuals to carry out the scheme. While in the U.S., Merchant contacted a person he believed could assist him. The person, in fact, reported Merchant's conduct and became a confidential source. He's sure, I'd love to work with the FBI. That sounds cool. Merchant asked the CS to assist him in contracting hitmen. All right, so Merchant is like, hey, dude, like, you know anybody who can like shoot somebody for me? The CS introduced Merchant to two purported hitmen, but in fact, they were undercover feds. Yeah, I know a couple guys, no problem. Let me introduce you to them. Pro tip, those are feds. Merchant subsequently paid the undercovers $5,000 in cash as an advance payment for the plot to murder government officials. That's a steal, man. That's it? $5,000? Shoot, that's like Gold Bar Menendez money, you know? I mean, he would do anything for like $5,000, like sell out his whole country for $50,000. Nothing, it's like nothing. So Merchant travels to the US to prepare his assassination plot, okay? So I thought he was already here. While in the US, he contacted a person he believed, okay. So before this, now on or about April 10th, Merchant flew from Pakistan to Istanbul, then from Istanbul to Houston in Texas on or about April 13th, and he tried to recruit people. Okay, now I was waiting. Soon after arriving in the US, he contacted the confidential source under the guise of wanting to discuss potential business opportunities in the US. Like, why is he flying here in the first place? On or about April 22nd, Merchant traveled from Texas to New York to meet with the CS in person. He's in Houston doing business, rounding up the crew. He then flies to New York. He then tells the confidential source, which he thinks is his liaison, that he and his uncle in Pakistan sold yarn-dyed clothing and suggested that the confidential source help Merchant sell the clothing in the US. He's like, you know, while we're plotting to kill the president, you know, I was thinking about your clothes. I mean, you know what kind of fabric this is? This is poor quality. We have great quality in my town in Pakistan. We'll conduct this assassination and then we're going to get you a new set of clothes. So Merchant then instructed the CS to create a corporation in the US, which would enable them to do business together. It sounds like Hunter Biden now. Now, while discussing their business plans, Merchant told the CS that that Merchant traveled to Iran 2 weeks before traveling to the US in April. He said, why don't you come with us to Iran? He says, you should come travel over there. I don't know who this confidential source is, but he says, yeah, come on, travel with us, no problem. No, come to Iran, it's great. In approximately May 2024, flies back from New York to Texas. Merchant calls the confidential source on the phone and said, look, I've got an opportunity for you, buddy. You're not going to believe this deal. You want to make $100,000 in the yarn dyed clothing business? $100,000, he says. Wow, that's a lot of money. Sure, what do you think we can do? Merchant says, okay, how about this? I'll meet you in person. So is this code? It's not yarn dyed? So now then he wants to talk about it. Man, I got the best yarn you've ever seen, bro. It comes from Pakistan. Are you kidding me? Yeah, let's do it. So Merchant then finally admits it. So on June 3rd, Merchant gets on an airplane. He goes from Texas to LaGuardia in New York. The confidential source picks him up from the airport. No, you don't need an Uber. I'll come get you. Drove him to a hotel in Nassau County, New York. Now, while at the hotel, Merchant told the confidential source that the opportunity that he had for the confidential source was not a one-time opportunity. Okay, this is going to be ongoing. You like this yarn, baby? Got a lot more where that came from. Okay, Pakistan's huge. Wait till you see the size of our yarn factory there. So he's talking to him about a one-time opportunity and it would be ongoing. Now then, Merchant then made a finger gun motion with his hand, indicating that the opportunity was related to a killing. What? That escalated very quickly, didn't it? How did we go from yarn into murder, like overnight? What on earth? So I don't know what this even means, right? He's talking about a yarn-dyed clothing business, $100,000. Merchant subsequently took the cell phone from the confidential source, put it in a drawer for security reasons. He said, I gotta hide this from you, okay? I don't want you to record this. He then stated that he would give the CS more details about the plan the next day, but he needed the CS to arrange a meeting for Merchant to meet hitmen in New York. What? So now we're relying on the CS. There's no recording of this, and it goes from yarn to gun pointing to hitmen, like all in the blink of an eye. The next day, Merchant met with the CS in his hotel room again, and they described the scheme. Now at the beginning of the meeting, so now we got tons of questions about the CS, because now it's the CS's statement. Like if we're defending Merchant here, as a good defense attorney would, we're asking ourselves, okay, who the hell is this dude? And nobody's recording this, so it's CS versus his word, and we just end this meeting and he says, I made a finger point. Do that all the time, man. It's just, boom. Hey, what's up? Boom. Nice one. But I'm not actually shooting anybody or anything like that. Shooter McGavin did it all the time in that one movie that was excellent. Although that guy was kind of a piece of work, But Merchant stated that he would give the CS more details about the plan and he just needed to arrange for hitmen. It's like, wow. Now they come back the next day at the beginning of the meeting. Merchant again takes his cell phone. He puts it in a drawer again for security purposes, implying that they could be recorded. He's like, man, my yarn is really, really good. And the CS never to speak when the phone was in his pocket. I don't want you to know where I'm getting my yarn sourced from. So Merchant then explained that his plot involved 3 criminal schemes. So he tells the CS, and it's not an FBI agent, I guess. Let's see. Says that the plot involved 3 different criminal schemes: stealing documents or USB drives from a target's home. Let's see. Planning a protest, which is that illegal? And then 3, killing a politician or a government official. Planning a protest, it's like, wait, if you're a J6er, yeah, that's definitely illegal. If you're like a Proud Boy or an Oath Keeper, like felon, 28 years, 30 years in prison. So Merchant stated that the victims would be, quote, targeted here, meaning in the United States. And again, I think he's telling all of this just to the CS. So this is the CS words versus Merchant's words. And I don't know if any of this is recorded. Let's see. He also stated that the people will be targeted are the ones who are hurting Pakistan and the world, the Muslim world. These are not normal people, is what this person said. They're selling really bad fabric and I can't stand for it. And Pakistan is being exploited. We have much better fabric and no one's buying it. So in my training and experience, individuals engaged in plots originating overseas to commit acts of violence in the US often obscure the sponsor or the broader purpose of the plot. So Merchant instructed the confidential source to arrange meetings with individuals who Merchant could hire to carry out these actions. Okay, now we're looking for some actual criminality. So Merchant then requested men who could do the killing. And we're making sure this is a good translation too. Approximately 25 people who could perform a protest, that's why it's illegal, as a distraction after the murder occurred, and then a woman to do reconnaissance. Okay, so now there's a whole plot coming together. He's like, all right, listen, you need a whole team of people. It's like multiple football teams to get this thing done. What can you do? Merchant told the CS that these individuals needed to be trusted. He also stated that he wanted the hitmen to procure him an untraceable phone so that they could communicate securely. Now, while in the hotel room, Merchant took out a napkin. He placed objects on the napkin to illustrate the potential assassination plot. It's like Hollywood movie. Targeting the person to be killed where Trump's going to be, a crowd surrounding buildings and streets. Merchant began planning the potential assassination scenarios photos on a napkin. And he quizzed the source about how he would kill the target in various scenarios. Specifically, Merchant pointed to the target and repeatedly asked the source to explain how the target would die. But how? Merchant told the CS that there would be security all around him. So how are you going to kill him? An image of Merchant gaming out the assassination plot is on the napkin. Okay. I didn't think we were going to have a napkin. So they're investigating him. Okay. So this crazy dude is like just in his hotel room. He's like, this is what we're going to do. And here you can see this must be Trump right here. And this must be a Secret Service agent over here. This reminds me, honestly, remember when the FBI captured that Lego set with the Capitol building on it? And they're like, this was how they were going to do it. They were moving their little Lego men over to seize the Capitol building. So he's got a napkin. This is the assassination plot. This is it. Doesn't need to be much. It's not very complex. It's just some dude on a napkin. Merchant instructed the confidential source. He says it would be better to talk in code about the phrase yarn die. Was a code that he used in the past when speaking with the source about the meeting. He says, guess what? I wasn't actually talking about yarn die. The confidential source responded that he had not realized in the past when Merchant mentioned the yarn die business that Merchant was speaking in code. Merchant told the source that he should use the company that they previously opened to transfer money for the plot. So now it's all coming together. Merchant also stated the plot would occur after he left the US. He would communicate with the source from overseas using code words. The source then asked whether Merchant had spoken to the party back home with whom Merchant was working. Like the Iranians? Who's in charge of you? Who's your handler? Merchant responded that, yeah, I do have a handler, and that the party back home told him to finalize the plan and leave the US. So Merchant then asked the source, he says, hey, are you comfortable with this plan? He says, you know, getting paid is not going to be an issue. We've got tons of money. He said, the nature of this work was different than the criminal activity that Merchant believed that you've done in the past. So the confidential source has a criminal history, and Merchant knows this guy has a criminal history. And so now we have questions about the reliability of the confidential source. Does the confidential source have prior felonies, or any of those prior felonies for crimes of moral turpitude? Has he had a conviction for any crimes of fraud, forgery, anything indicating dishonesty that might say that this dude's a liar? Anyways, so you're a criminal, but this is a little bit different. You're gonna have to actually kill somebody this time. But that Merchant performed the Istikhara from the Quran before doing this. So I guess, does that make it okay? Meaning that Merchant prayed to God about whether he should do this work or not, and received clarity from God to carry out his mission. So then on June 5th, 2024, Merchant, the hitman, now met with the CS again, the guy who's trying to hire hitmen, and expressed impatience with the CS setting up meetings. He says, where are these guys? Go find them. Merchant stated the whole purpose of coming to New York was to meet with these guys. He said, okay, well, hang on. So this is weird, right? Because this guy, up until this point, the CS is there thinking they're talking about yarn, literal yarn. Then the CS says, okay, sure, let me find these people. Now he tells Merchant that he has contacted the hitman and he's setting up a meeting. Now, while Merchant waited for the meeting to be scheduled, he instructed the source to drive him around New York City looking for clubs where he could recruit other individuals to assist in his plot. So he's going around from club to club. Those guys look good. Are they assassins? On or about J6, Merchant had the CS, the confidential source, drive him around Brooklyn to scout clubs. Merchant told the source that through their yarn-dyed work, again code word, God willing, he intended to save up to $1 million. And he believes that they could make up to $1 million through this criminal scheme. So I guess now the story's changed. So you don't have to worry about being paid because I've got a financial backer in Iran or somewhere, but now we don't really have a done deal. So we could make up to $1 million, but it hasn't been settled yet. I guess determine who's actually funding this thing, because now that story's changed. So Merchant then hires a hitman, right? So on around June 10th, Merchant spoke to the CS, the source, over the phone, discussed meeting the hitman in person later that evening. Now, following the discussion, Merchant and the CS met the two hitmen, who were in fact undercover feds in Manhattan. You're kidding. Everybody's always undercover. Now, Merchant advised the undercovers that he was looking for 3 services from them. He says, I want you to steal documents, I want you to arrange protests at political rallies, and I want you to kill somebody. Can you guys do that? I say, yeah, sure, of course, we're happy to. Merchant stated, no problem. Merchant stated that the person he wanted them to murder, okay, but this is a little different. It's not just anybody, it's a political person. He stated that he was willing to pay for these services, and he wants long-term relationships in case he wants to, kill someone else. So during the meeting, Merchant presented himself as the representative in the US of some foreign entity, now indicating that there were other people he worked for outside the US. The Iranians. Merchant told the undercovers that he wanted to pay them in cash through hawalas, which are informal, unregulated methods of transferring money between two countries without any physical money moving. Typically, the system requires 2 hawaladars, one in each country, to handle the transaction without money being wired overseas. So in Istanbul and Dubai, So Merchant reiterated that the undercover's work would be long-term work and that most likely he would travel back to Pakistan before giving them further instructions. Now, using the plural tense to indicate that he was working with people overseas, Merchant stated that, quote, we would give the instructions, including the target name, who could it be, to the hitman, the last week of August 2024 or the first week of September 24, when Merchant was out of the US. Undercovers told Merchant that they would provide him with a secure cell phone to communicate with him. Merchant had requested of the CS, yeah, we got your cell phone right here, totally untraceable. He's like, great, thanks. And would be in touch about how much their services would cost. Merchant told the UCs, I will assure you, will not regret me. Now, on or about June 12th, Merchant then met with one of the undercovers and again got a cell phone to use in furtherance of the plot. Feds come, use this one. During the meeting, Merchant agreed to pay the undercovers a $5,000 advance payment for the plot. He stated that it would take him 1 week to maintain the money, but then he would pay the UCs in New York or Vegas. Then there's coded language for the plot. So following the meeting, Merchant again met with the confidential source. On June 13th, Merchant met with the source. They wrote out coded language on a piece of paper. Wow, another one. That he instructed the CS to copy down and use when communicating with him in the future. The word t-shirt means a protest, which he described as the lightest work. The phrase flannel shirt would mean stealing, which was heavier work. The phrase fleece jacket, which is the heaviest work, would mean the third task, you know, to commit the act of the game, indicating murder. And the phrase denim jacket referred to sending money. Merchant told the confidential source to use the code words only orally on the phone, don't text those. He then said, run your legitimate clothing business that we previously discussed, and that clothing business will be up front for the plot so we can maintain communication. So this dude is just crazy. Merchant also indicated an affinity for Iran and told the source that the money they were using for the plot was halal, meaning it was permitted. Okay, and the source is like, yeah, sure, yeah, I'll just use my business. Sure, no problem. So Merchant arranges money then. After meeting with the purported hitman, Merchant traveled to Boston, Massachusetts and began arranging means to get $5,000 cash. On or about June 18th, in a telephone call with an associate in the US, Merchant also asked for help getting the money, $5,000. He told the associate, he says, man, I can't get the money from Pakistan. He says everything was closed due to the EID holiday. I can't get my assassin money, man. Merchant then instructed the associate to transfer $5,000 through Hawala, which Merchant would pay back in either Pakistan or via a Hawala. Now, on or about June 20th then, Merchant contacted that associate again. He says, where's my money, man? I can't even get my $5,000. The associate asked if he could transfer the money to a bank account. Merchant responded that it had to be cash. I need it by Friday, like now. Later that day, Merchant called the source, told the source, I've got someone giving me the $5,000. He instructed the source to take a photograph of a serial number on a $1 bill and text the image to Merchant. What? Merchant says to the source, take a picture of a serial number on a $1 bill and text that to me. Then I'm going to send the image of the serial number to the person with the $5,000. Then, when the source went to pick up the money, he would show the person the serial number as verification. Okay, so it's like a secret word or something? It's a weird way to do it. Merchant stated that the CS should expect a call from an individual when the money was ready and that the money would probably come from Pakistan. So Merchant explained that after the source received the money, Merchant would travel back to New York, collect the money from the source, and then deliver it to the hitman. It's changing hands multiple times. It's like, what are you guys doing? Just like give a secret code word or something, a secret, handshake. Now, on or about June 21st at approximately 5 a.m., the CS got a series of missed WhatsApp calls from an overseas telephone number that had a display name of someone that the source knew to be Merchant's cousin who's living overseas. The source called the number back and the person said, hey, source, did you get the $5,000? The source said, no, I had not received the money yet, no. So the person then gave the source a telephone number. They said, okay, here, go get the money from this dude. Later that day, the source texted the number and they got the money. So there was money that changed hands. As instructed by Merchant, the CS showed the serial number of the dollar bill to the individual and the individual handed over the $5,000. And it's probably just some like cousin who's like, our crazy son is just off on the rockers again. He's like, he needs bail money or something. Just give him $5,000, send it over. Little do they know they're funding a plot. So Merchant then makes an advance payment, $5,000 for the assassination plot. So then on June 21st, Merchant traveled from Boston to New York to make the payment for the hitman. The CS picked Merchant up at a bus station. Merchant took the $5,000 in cash that he had for Merchant and he met the undercovers in Manhattan. After the undercovers arrived, Merchant handed over the $5,000 cash to them. Photograph is the cash below. Here you go, guys. Good luck shooting him. After Merchant paid $5,000, one of the undercover cops said to him, now we're bonded. To which Merchant responded, yes, money has changed hands. Now, the undercover said, now we know we're going forward, right? We're doing this. Merchant responded, yes, absolutely. Merchant reiterated that the plan was for the undercovers to go forward with his 3 plots: the assassination, the protest, and the stealing of documents. That's a lot of work, man, for $5,000. Merchant added that he wanted undercovers to launder money for him as well. While you're doing it, yeah, do this too. Merchant explained that he would return to Pakistan before giving the undercovers additional details about the murder plot. Merchant suggested meeting the undercovers in Dubai or Istanbul to convey instructions because it'd be easier for him to do that. Merchant reiterated the plot would occur in the US. He ended the meeting by telling the undercovers, "I'll be in touch." Guy thinks he's like a mob boss. Then he subsequently made flight arrangements, planned to travel out of the US on Friday, July 12th. Now, on or about July 12th, a law enforcement agent observed Merchant, so now they're tailing this guy, place his luggage in the trunk of a vehicle outside of his place in his residence. Law enforcement said this guy's fleeing. They arrest him, search his place of residence and his person. They get a search warrant. During the search, law enforcement again searched his wallet and they found a handwritten note inside with the code words. Ugh, you can see it. T-shirt, flannel, fleece jacket, denim. That's the plot right there. Says the handwritten note was in there and that Merchant invented these things to communicate about the assassination plot. A photograph of the piece of paper is down there below, along with that money. So here's the conclusion. Now, it's respectfully requested the court seal this. Premature disclosure can jeopardize our investigation. He can flee and all that. It's been unsealed. It's respectfully requested that the seal happens, and that's it. Your opponent respectfully requests that he may be dealt with according to law. The judge, of course, issued an arrest warrant. Criminal complaint has been filed, signed by Anthony Cipriano. So, all right, that's your mega assassination plot, right? Couple of, probably an insane dude and another criminal who are just hanging out, plotting around. What if we did this? And what if we did this? And of course, I don't want anybody to be taken out or any assassination plot to happen at all. But I certainly don't know that this is a master plot by Iran or something like that, that some dude is on a napkin and we need to go to war with Iran or something, or whatever they're trying to do with this. But this was very curious because we're talking about this connection here. And the Manhattan connection is something that the Oversight Project just dropped fresh out of the oven. They say yesterday a complaint was unsealed. We read through it just now. Now, Merchant took the CS's cell phone. Remember, they follow the cell phone data around. They can gobble it up and aggregate it from all the ad companies that are out there. Right? You browse the internet, all the cookies are pinging your stuff. They know who you are, really. And so they can just trace it. Says the Pakistani met with 2 hitmen who are actually undercovers, but says, why was the security posture in Butler so vulnerable if this was all known? Okay, if this guy, right, the DOJ, the FBI are clearly investigating this dude. There's an open, active concern that Iran has a plot. If they think it's a real plot, this is like a joke, obviously. The guy was on a napkin. They're going around to clubs to find people. $5,000. It's like a joke. Still serious, still worth investigating it. He still should be arrested, all this stuff, but I don't think it's a plot by Iran, all the hallmarks of Iranian whatever. It doesn't seem like that. But if it was happening, why did they bring Trump out there when they had a loose suspect who they lost eyes on J13? Strange. So why did that happen? So what they've done at Oversight is they've continued to analyze mobile ad data that was associated with crooks, and we found even yet a new connection. The same device that visited Washington, D.C. and Crooks' home and work also visited Manhattan. But see, this one is also going to Manhattan. And so why would that be? Here is how the news was reporting it over on ABC. This was what Kyra Phillips said.
In connection with an alleged plot to assassinate former President Donald Trump. Senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky joins me now. So what do we know about this man and what he was planning,
Kira, his name is Asif Merchant, and he entered the United States, according to federal prosecutors in Brooklyn, in April. And while he was here in the United States, he made phone calls trying to hire hitmen to carry out his alleged scheme to assassinate government officials on U.S. soil. The criminal complaint does not mention former President Trump by name, but multiple sources familiar with this case say one of the intended targets was former President Trump. The hitmen that Asif Merchant allegedly contacted ended up being confidential sources of the FBI. So there was never any real danger here because it seems the feds were onto this man from the start. They followed him for several months and arrested him July 12th, just before he was about to board a flight and leave the country. Kira, the arrest July 12th, you'll note, is one day before former President Trump's rally rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, when there was an attempt on the former president's life, although these two things are not believed to be connected.
All right, so no evidence in any way, shape, or form that they could have shared information or were connected in any way. Two separate incidents at this point.
So it seems, Kira, that the FBI has said they found no connection between Thomas Crooks, the 20-year-old who took a shot at Trump in Pennsylvania, and any foreign operatives. But we did learn, subsequent to the rally and the assassination attempt, that the Secret Service had made adjustments to the security plan for the rally because of a thinking that Iran did have this desire to go after former President Trump. Perhaps now we know what gave them that indication. Perhaps
they did? They increased security? You believe that for a second? They increased security and he still got shot? No, I don't buy that for a second. So that's just more state government garbage propaganda. But we'll continue to investigate. Strange that the device did appear in Manhattan, where this guy was based. Who knows if that means anything or not, but we'll continue to follow. Certainly there are actual assassins out there. There are people who actually do want Trump dead, and they'd be thrilled if that was accomplished. We'll cover this. We'll cover J13, and we appreciate you joining us as we do wherever it is you're watching this. Thank you so much for subscribing and really for sharing this channel with a friend or family member so that they can come join us when we go live as we cover this and more.